This job had one rule: don't help anyone. I broke it anyway. The first thing they told me was that I wasn't there to help anyone, not to warn someone, not to call out, not to pick up the phone unless the system told me to. Not in a cruel way either. Not in the way of someone who enjoys saying something like that. The woman who trained me, Renata, mid-50s, neat blouse, steady hands, the kind of person who looked like she'd already made peace with every decision that had ever cost her anything, said it the way you'd explain gravity to someone who'd somehow reached adulthood without hearing of it. As a fact. As a condition of the world. "You are an observer," she said. "The city contracted this position to document, not to intervene. If you intervene, you compromise the integrity of the observation record. If you compromise the record, the contract becomes void. If the contract becomes void, the system goes dark and nobody watches anything." Then she paused. "Is that clear?" I said yes. Because what else do you say to something like that on your first night? She handed me a laminated card with the same rule printed on it in 3 short sentences. I still have it somewhere. The corners are soft now from being handled. That should probably tell you something. The job was simple in the way jobs are always simple when they explain them before you start. Monitor the feeds, log anomalies, call the designated line if anything reaches the threshold for emergency dispatch. Do not engage. Do not call 911 directly. Do not access feeds outside your assigned district grid. Do not intervene. Simple. Administrative. Clinical. The kind of job description that makes everything sound procedural, right up until you actually have to sit there and do it. What they didn't tell me, what nobody tells you, is what it feels like to watch. Not the content, the act, the weight of it. Sitting in a room the size of a generous closet, under fluorescent lights that made every hour feel equally dead, with 4 monitors in front of you and 72 live feeds cycling on a 20-second rotation. The city laid out in front of me in gray and green and overexposed white. Every feed a rectangle of someone else's life. The bus stop at Clement and 9th, the underpass at Morrison, the parking structure on Whitfield, the alley behind the Costco on Reed, the park at night, the park at 3 a.m. At first it feels distant, detached. You tell yourself you're not really seeing people, not fully, just motion, just streets, just timestamps in the corner of a screen. But you watch long enough and something changes. You stop seeing events. You start seeing patterns. The way a city breathes differently at 2 a.m. than it does at 4. The way people stand when they think nobody is looking. The way couples fight in public versus how strangers drift apart. The way someone about to do something bad moves with a kind of terrible patience. The way darkness moves or doesn't. And the difference between those two things. That was the part that got to me first. Not violence, not blood, not even danger, stillness. The wrong kind of stillness. A person standing too long in one place. A car idling too long at a curb. A shape in a doorway that should have shifted by now, but didn't. The room never changed size, but after a few nights it started feeling smaller anyway. Not physically, just in the way a place changes once you realize what it's really for. 4 monitors, 1 chair, 1 phone, 1 person deciding what counts. That last part took me a little longer to understand. I'd been doing it for 11 days when I made my first mistake. Feed 44. The pedestrian walkway on the east side of the Morrison Bridge. A woman, early 30s, standing at the railing. That alone wasn't enough. People stop on bridges all the time. They look at the water. They take photos. They make phone calls they don't want to make anywhere else. I logged it as standard behavior, let the feed cycle. 18 seconds later, it came back. Same frame, same angle, same woman. She hadn't moved, not toward the rail, not away from it, just standing there. Hands at her sides, looking down. That was the first moment I felt it, that quiet shift. The one you can't explain in a report. I knew what the training said. I knew what the card said. I actually picked it up, looked at it, read it like maybe it would say something different this time. You are an observer. Do not intervene. I could hear Renata's voice in my head. Calm, certain. The contract, the record, the integrity of observation. All of it made sense. Until it didn't. Because there's a difference between understanding a rule and watching someone stand too still at the edge of a bridge. I waited one more cycle. 18 seconds. She didn't move. That was enough. I picked up the phone, called the non-emergency line, kept my voice level. Said there was a woman on the Morrison Bridge, East Walkway, who had been standing at the railing for an extended period. Said it might be nothing. Said someone might want to drive by. I told them I was a night security monitor. I did not tell them where. They said they'd send a unit. I put the phone down, and for the first time since I started the job, I didn't look away when the feed cycled. I waited for it to come back, and when it did, she was still there. 18 seconds, still there. I watched feed 44 for the next 40 minutes. Didn't log anything else. I didn't check another screen. Just that one rectangle, that one decision. Eventually, a patrol car pulled into frame. An officer stepped out, walked toward her slowly, carefully. They talked. I couldn't hear it. Didn't need to. She sat down on the bench. He sat beside her. They stayed like that for a while. Long enough that the tension in my chest started to loosen without me noticing. Then they stood, walked back to the car together. She got in. Voluntarily. The door closed. The car pulled away, and just like that. The feed was empty again, normal, nothing to log. I leaned back in my chair and felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. Not complicated. Not conflicted, just clean. The kind that fills you up from the bottom and pushes everything else out of the way. I logged it as an unscheduled observation note. Left out the part about the call. Left out the part about the choice. I told myself it was a one-time thing, that the rule was there for administrative reasons, that this was different. This was a person. I was right about one of those things. 3 nights later, feed 31, the underpass at Morrison, not the bridge, 2 blocks east, different world, same system. That underpass had its own rhythm. There was always a burn barrel there, always the same loose circle of people drifting in and out of its light. You watch long enough, you start categorizing things. Disputes especially, territorial, substance-related, cold weather resource. Most of them follow patterns. Voices rise, someone steps back, someone postures. 4 minutes, maybe 5, and it dissolves. This one didn't feel like that. 2 men, too close. The third one standing just outside the barrel's light, watching, not involved. That part matters. One of the 2 bent down, picked something up. I couldn't see what it was, didn't need to. The way he held it changed everything. There's a shift that happens in the body right before something becomes real. Weight redistribution, shoulders tightening, movement getting efficient. I'd seen it before, enough times to know where it ends. I didn't wait this time. Picked up the phone, called the line, gave the location, kept it simple. Possible assault in progress. They dispatched. I stayed on the feed. 18 seconds. Cycle. Back again. Still there. The man still holding it. Third man still watching. 18 seconds. Cycle. Back again. And something had already changed. The object was on the ground. The distance between them had opened up. The tension was gone. Not resolved. Just gone. By the time the patrol car entered the frame, there was nothing left to respond to. No fight, no report, no reason for the call. They drove through, slowed, left. I logged nothing, because there was nothing to log. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. About 20 minutes later, feed 33. 2 blocks north. A closed laundromat. Fluorescent sign half dead. There he was. The third man. The watcher. Sitting alone on the curb. Same clothes. Same posture. Except not the same. That's the part I couldn't explain. He looked emptier. Like whatever had been about to happen back at the barrel, whatever energy had been building there, had moved. Not disappeared. Moved. And now it was sitting with him. Alone. I watched that feed longer than I needed to. Longer than protocol. Waiting for something I couldn't define. Nothing happened. No one approached him. No escalation. No event. Just him. Sitting there. Holding something I couldn't see. Eventually the feed cycled. He was gone. Or I lost him. Same difference in this job. Once someone leaves your grid, they stop existing in any way that matters to the system. I wrote it down anyway, not in the official log. That one stayed clean. But I noted it. Time, feed numbers, sequence. Because something about it didn't sit right. It wasn't the first time I'd intervened, but it was the first time I felt like I hadn't stopped something. Just moved it. For about 2 weeks, I told myself it was coincidence. That's the word I used. Coincidence. The city is a complex system. Complex systems produce unpredictable outcomes. That's what I told myself. Lying awake after my shifts. Same phrasing, same logic. Over and over again. Because if you say something enough times, it starts to sound like truth. The problem was, I was good at the job. Better than I expected to be. Before this, I worked in logistics, routing. The kind of work where your entire day is spent looking for the one variable that shifts everything else. A delay here, a reroute there, one small adjustment that changes the entire chain. That instinct carried over. I could feel anomalies before I could explain them. A posture that didn't fit, a stillness that lasted too long. Someone moving against the natural flow of a street at 2 a.m. Little things. The kind of things you don't notice until you do. And once you notice them, you can't unsee them. So I kept intervening, not constantly, not recklessly, carefully. I had a threshold. Something had to cross it, but once it did, I called. And every time I called, something resolved. On that feed, in that moment, clean, contained, finished. But somewhere else, something shifted. At first it was subtle, easy to ignore. A fight breaking out 40 minutes later in a part of the grid that didn't usually have fights. A disturbance near Whitfield that didn't fit the pattern of that area. The feeds would feel different. Not visibly, but if you sat there long enough, you could feel it. Like the air pressure in the room had changed. Like something had been compressed and pushed somewhere else. I didn't have proof, not the kind you could show someone, so I made my own. I started keeping a second log, not official, not on the system, personal, times, feed numbers, what I saw, what I did, and what happened after. I bought a notebook from a drugstore on the way home one morning. Cheap paper, thin cover, something I could throw away if I needed to. I didn't type any of it, didn't want it on a screen, didn't want it connected to anything, just ink, just me. By the time I filled 12 pages, it wasn't a theory anymore, it was a pattern. Every time I intervened, something else happened. Different place, different people, same weight. Not identical, but equivalent. Like the system was correcting itself, not punishing me. Not reacting to me, just adjusting, balancing like pressure in a closed loop. I move something here, something moves there. No matter what I did, the total amount of harm in my grid didn't change. It just redistributed. I sat with that for 3 days, didn't write, didn't call, just watched, hoping there was a mistake somewhere, a flaw in the pattern, something I'd missed. There wasn't. And once I accepted that, everything else followed. It meant I hadn't been saving anyone. Not really. Not in the way I thought. I had just been deciding where it landed. I had been choosing who. The night I understood it, I almost quit. I drove to the office early, 9 p.m., an hour before my shift, sat in the parking lot with the engine still running, hands on the wheel, doing nothing, thinking. About Renata, about the card, about how casually she'd said it. You are not here to help. I thought about the woman on the bridge, about the way she sat down, the way she got into the car, that clean relief. And then I thought about the man at the burn barrel, the third one, the one who didn't do anything until I changed where the moment went. I sat there asking myself a question I couldn't answer. Was she being okay? Worth whatever happened to him? And the worst part was, I didn't even know what happened to him. I just knew something did. That was enough. I could have left. That's the part that stayed with me. I could have turned the engine off, driven home, never come back. No one was forcing me to sit in that room. No one was watching me. No one would have stopped me. But I didn't leave. I went inside because I realized something sitting in that car. Something I didn't like. I couldn't stop. Not because of the job, not because of the contract, because the alternative, watching something happen and doing nothing, had become its own kind of impossible. I had already crossed the line. Just not the one on the card. A different one. The line between a world where I could act and a world where I was choosing not to. And once you cross that, there's no going back to neutral. Once you know you can intervene, not intervening isn't passive anymore. It's a decision. From that night on, every shift became that. Not observation, not monitoring, choosing every night. I was choosing. And somewhere along the way, the system noticed. Not metaphorically, not in the way people say systems notice patterns. I mean, the feeds changed. Actually changed. At first, it was small. Repetition. I'd log an anomaly. Cycle would run. Come back. Same frame. Same person. Same posture. A woman at the bus stop at Clement and Ninth, standing exactly the way she'd been 11 minutes earlier. Not frozen. I checked the timestamp. It was live. She had just been standing there. That long. Completely still. In a city where no one stands still at 1 a.m. Then it escalated. Mirroring. I'd note something on one feed, and 2 cycles later, the same behavior would appear somewhere else. Different block, different person, same posture, same angle, like the city was repeating itself, not copying, echoing. That's what it felt like. Echoes. Then came sequencing, and that's when it stopped feeling random. Events started lining up. Not cause and effect I could prove, but order. This, then this, then this. A woman arguing on a phone. Cut. A man sitting alone on a bench, directly beneath the camera, looking up. Cut. A child running, too fast, in a direction that didn't make sense. 4 feeds later, nothing. No destination, no parent, no explanation, just gone. The child stayed with me. Children don't belong on my grid at that hour. When they showed up, they didn't feel accidental. They felt placed, like something wanted me to see them. I checked surrounding feeds, nothing, no origin, no exit. They just appeared, and then didn't. I wrote everything down. Every repetition, every echo, every sequence. The notebook filled faster after that, and at some point, I stopped leaving it on the table. I started keeping it next to the bed, close enough to reach, like I thought. If I didn't write something down immediately, I might lose it, or worse, miss the next pattern forming. The night everything changed was in early November. It had been raining for 3 days. Not heavy, not dramatic, just that steady gray rain a city settles into when it stopped pretending it will end. The feeds look different because of it. Washed out. Streetlights smeared into halos. Reflections stretching across pavement like everything had been pulled thinner. It made judging distance harder. Movement softer, mistakes easier. That's the night it happened. 4 feeds. Inside 6 minutes. Not red alerts, not enough individually. But together, something was wrong. Feed 12. Reed Avenue. A man down in a doorway. Could have been intoxicated. Could have been medical. The angle was bad. The rain made it worse. Feed 28. Clement corridor. A woman walking. A man behind her. Not close enough to trigger panic, but not far enough to ignore. That exact distance. The one that means he's aware of her. And she hasn't decided if she's aware of him yet. Feed 41. Whitfield structure, top level. 2 teenagers. One sitting, one standing on a ledge. And the one sitting, laughing. That kind of laughing. The kind that doesn't stay funny. Feed 67. The park. A man. And a child. I didn't need a better angle. I didn't need audio. The child's body language was wrong. I sat there, looking at all 4. And for the first time, I didn't see 4 separate events. I saw a configuration. I had 1 phone, 1 call, 1 dispatch. That was it. And I knew from 11 weeks of watching, like exactly how fast things change once they cross the line. By the time a second unit arrives, if there even is a second unit at 2:40 in the morning, 3 of those 4 situations would already be decided. I didn't have time to hesitate. 1 call. I made it about the park. You already know why. There are hierarchies to harm. Some of them are complicated. Some of them aren't. A child, at that hour, with that posture, that's the top of the list. Every time, I called, gave the location, kept my voice steady. Then I stayed on feed 67. Didn't look away. 6 minutes. It took 6 minutes for the unit to arrive. Longest 6 minutes of my life. The man left before they got there. Of course he did. They always move right before resolution. But the child was still there. The officers found them, talked, checked, stayed. The child was okay. Not untouched. Not unaffected, but okay enough. A unit stayed. I exhaled. Didn't realize I'd been holding it then. I looked back at the other three. Feed 12. Reed Avenue. The man in the doorway hadn't moved. I picked up the phone again. Different number this time. Different tone. "I'm just passing by," I said. "There's someone down here." That one resolved. They got to him. He was alive. They took him in. Feed 28, Clement Corridor. The distance had closed. While I was on the phone, he'd moved closer. Not enough to trigger anything official. Enough. She turned into a 24-hour pharmacy. He stopped outside. Waited. Didn't go in. Just waited. She stayed inside for 22 minutes. I watched the door the entire time. When she came out, he was gone. I don't know if she knew. I don't know what she thought she was doing in there that long. I just know she walked away. Alive. Feed 41. Whitfield. By the time I got back, both kids were sitting. The ledge was empty. They were passing something between them, laughing again. Normal, or close enough to pass for it. They stayed there for another hour. Nothing happened. 4 feeds, resolved. 1 official call, 1 improvised, 2 left adrift. I sat there in the silence after, and something settled into place. This is what I do now, not watching, not logging, deciding. I am a person who decides, and then Feed 12 came back around. Reed Avenue, the doorway. The man was gone. Taken, handled, resolved. But someone else was there. A woman. Curled into the same corner, same space, different body. And something about the way she was positioned was wrong. Not asleep. Not resting. Wrong. The specific wrongness of a body that has stopped making decisions about how it holds itself. I leaned forward, stared at the screen. I had been watching that doorway for 11 weeks, same angle, same blind spot, same routine. I had never seen her before, not once. And now, she was there, in the exact space created by the call I made, the exact window opened by removing the man, and she was in the condition he hadn't been in. That's when it clicked. Not slowly, not as a theory, instantly, clean, cold. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. The system wasn't balancing blindly. It wasn't reacting. It was adjusting to me. It knew where I would act. It knew what I would prioritize. It knew how long I would hesitate and when I wouldn't. And now, it was placing things accordingly. The system hadn't just been rebalancing, it had been learning. It had learned me. It knew my threshold. That was the part that didn't leave room for denial, not guesswork, not coincidence. It knew what I would respond to and what I would hesitate on. It knew I would prioritize a child. It knew how long I would watch before I picked up the phone. It knew the difference between something I'd log and something I couldn't ignore, because I had been teaching it. For 11 weeks, every call, every pause, every decision, I had been demonstrating a pattern, and something inside the system had learned it. Not perfectly, but well enough. Well enough to start arranging things, not randomly, not reactively, deliberately. Events began to appear in configurations that didn't just demand attention. They exceeded it. 4 at once, then the 5th. Not louder, not more obvious. Just more than I could handle at the same time. Next shift, 3. Simpler, but spread across a part of the grid where my response time was slower. Farther feeds, wider gaps, less margin, then 6 feeds. All just below the line, all at once. Like something was testing how much I could hold before I broke pattern. That's when I understood what the job actually was. Not observation, not documentation, triage. That's all it had ever been. The city doesn't stop producing harm. It never has. The difference is whether someone is there to decide where it lands. That's the part they don't tell you. The choices are always made. The only question is whether the person making them knows they're making them, or gets to live inside the comfortable lie that they're just watching. Renata knew. That realization didn't come in the room, it came later. Week 13, lying in bed, the notebook on the nightstand. Her voice, clearer than it should have been. You are not here to help. Not, there is nothing you can do. Not, it's not your job. You are not here to help. That's different. That means you are here for something else, something where helping isn't the right word. Something where helping isn't even the point. She hadn't been warning me. She'd been describing it, just in a way that only makes sense once you've already crossed into it. The card. The laminated card I kept touching like it might change. 3 sentences. I had read them as rules, restrictions, boundaries. They weren't. They were a description. You are an observer. The city watches itself through you. The system requires integrity of record. Everything that happens must be witnessed. Nothing can be unwatched. If you intervene, the record is compromised. Your choices become the record. The city writes itself through your choices. That's what I hadn't understood. I wasn't hired to prevent harm. I was hired to witness it, because a city that is being watched doesn't behave the same way as one that isn't. And a city being watched by someone who makes decisions, adjusts, calibrates, builds itself around those decisions, around those limits, around that person. I had been looking for the variable in the system, something external, something hidden, something wrong. It wasn't external. It wasn't hidden. It was me. I had been the variable the whole time. On my last night, it didn't give me 4. It didn't give me 6. It gave me 2, just 2. Feed 19 and feed 52. Nothing else. Feed 19 first. A man I recognized. That matters. I'd seen him before. 11 times across my logs. Same route, same time window, same posture. 2:10 to 2:35. South edge of the district. He never crossed my threshold. Never did anything that qualified. He was just there. A constant. The kind of person you stop logging because they never become a problem. Tonight, he wasn't walking. He was standing. Outside a residential building I knew just as well. Feed 19's anchor. Same doorway. Same camera angle. He had something in his hand. It took me 3 cycles to identify it. An envelope. He stood there for a long time. Long enough that I started watching him the way I watch anomalies. Then, he slipped it back into his coat. Didn't knock, didn't leave, just waited. Feed 52, Reed and 4th, a bus shelter, a woman sitting alone. Bag on her lap, not distressed, not agitated, just waiting. I checked the schedule board. The 38 wasn't due until 3:20. It was 2:48. She had 30 minutes. Nothing about it crossed my threshold. Nothing about either of them did. That was the point. The system presented them both, and then, at 2:51, it did something it had never done before. The other 70 feeds went dark, not off. The monitors stayed on. The timestamp kept running. But every feed, every single one, was replaced with a black rectangle, except these 2. Feed 19, feed 52. That was it. No noise, no glitch, no warning, just silence. And in that silence, I understood. Not slowly, not as a theory, clean, immediate, like something that had been building for weeks, finally snapping into place. This wasn't a pattern anymore. This was a statement. One of these people would have something happen to them tonight. Not both. Never both. The system doesn't reduce harm. It redistributes it. I knew that now. 13 weeks, 12 pages, dozens of choices, same total. Different locations, different faces, same weight. And tonight, it wasn't subtle. Tonight, it was asking me directly. One of them. I didn't know which. I didn't know what. But I knew the structure. If I made a call about one, the other absorbed the consequence. If I called about neither, the system defaulted. Random, unobserved, unchosen. If I walked out, if I shut everything down, the grid went dark. Nobody watched. Nobody chose. Renata's voice, clear as if she was standing behind me. If the system goes dark, nobody watches anything. That's when it hit me. The worst part of it. Not the choice, not the uncertainty, not even the consequence. The worst part was that I wanted to choose. I sat there, staring at feed 19 and feed 52, and I could feel it. That pull, that belief buried somewhere below logic that I could do it better. That my version of redistribution was more careful, more human, more considered. That if I chose, it would be the right kind of wrong. That's what 13 weeks had done. It hadn't just trained me to see. It had trained me to believe. I should decide. I sat there and felt the shape of what I had become. I thought about the woman on the bridge. That relief. Clean. Simple. Complete. I thought about the child in the park. 6 minutes. The man leaving. The child staying. Okay enough. I thought about Reed Avenue. The doorway. The space I created and who filled it after. I thought about the notebook. 12 pages. Names I didn't have. Faces I couldn't forget. All the people I had chosen. And all the people I had unchosen by choosing. My hand moved before I fully decided. Picked up the phone. Not dispatch. Renata. She picked up on the second ring, which meant she'd been waiting. How long has it been doing this? I asked. Doing what? She said. Configurations? I said. The isolation. 2 feeds. How many monitors has it done this to? A pause. Long enough. You're the longest, she said. 13 weeks, mate, that's longer than most. I swallowed. What happens if I don't choose? The city does, she said. Some things resolve, most don't. And if I keep choosing? Another pause. It keeps learning you, she said, and it will keep finding your limit. I looked back at the screens. Feed 19. The man had his hand on the door now, not knocking, just resting there. Feed 52. The woman hadn't moved, still sitting, still waiting, like nothing in the world had changed. I'm going to shut it down, I said. That voids the contract, Renata replied. I know. The district goes unwatched. I know. Silence. Then, it won't stop anything, she said quietly. Just means you won't see it. I know, I said, and this time, I meant something different. I reached over, powered down the first monitor. Feed 19. Gone. Then feed 52. Gone. Then the rest, those 70 black rectangles, collapsed into nothing, one by one, until the room was just a room. No feeds, no grid, no choices, just 4 dark screens. And me. I sat there for a while. Didn't move, didn't think. I just felt it. Not relief. That's important. There was no relief, just weight. Permanent, like something had closed behind me. And I was on the other side of it now. Whatever happened to the man with the envelope, Whatever happened to the woman waiting for the 38? I would never know. That was the cost. That was the consequence. Not choosing is still a choice. I put on my jacket, left the laminated card on the desk, walked out, and drove home in the rain. I don't know what the system is. I want to be careful about that. Because once you start naming something like this, you start believing you understand it. And I don't. I have theories. You can't do a job like that for 13 weeks and not try to explain it to yourself. That large-scale surveillance networks, given enough time, start to produce patterns that look like intelligence. That what I was seeing wasn't intention, just correlation. That I introduced the variable myself. That every time I intervened, I altered the equation, and what followed was just the system correcting for it. Or that none of it was accidental. That I was chosen. Not for my qualifications, not for my experience, but because I was the kind of person who would break the rule, the kind of person who couldn't sit still. And that every decision I made, every call, every hesitation, every choice was the data. That the contract was never about watching the city. It was about watching me. I don't know which of those is true. Maybe none of them. Maybe all of them are the same thing, just described differently. What I do know is simpler than that. There's a district in this city that isn't being watched tonight, and the night after that, and the night after that, until they replace me, until someone else sits in that room, until someone else learns how to see patterns and starts believing they can do better than randomness. What I know is this: I chose to stop choosing, and that choice has consequences I will never see. That's the part that stays with you, not the things you witnessed, the things you didn't. Renata called me the next morning, said the contract termination was being processed. Her voice sounded the same as it always did. Calm, certain, like none of this was new to her. "I hope you understand the decision you made," she said. "I do," I told her. There was a pause. Then she said, "Most of them don't make it to the 2-feed configuration." I leaned against the kitchen counter. "Then what do?" "They keep going," she said. "The configurations get harder. They keep choosing." Another pause. "Eventually it becomes impossible. 3 simultaneous events. 4-minute response windows. No clean option. And then, they choose wrong," she said. "Or they hesitate. And then the system chooses for them. Silence. And then they come back the next night," she added, "because they believe next time they'll choose better." I let that sit for a second. "And do they?" Another pause. Shorter this time. "They choose faster." That was her answer. I thanked her. Hung up. I still have the notebook, haven't opened it since that night. It's in a drawer. I know exactly where, I just don't touch it. I tell myself I'll burn it eventually, when I'm ready. When I'm ready to stop carrying it around in my head first. The woman on the bridge, I think she's okay. That one I let myself keep. That one I know. The rest, I've had to learn not to know. That's the real work. Not the room, not the monitors, not the night everything went dark. That part was easy. The work is after. Waking up, going outside, standing in a line, sitting on a bus, and not scanning every face like a feed. Not ranking risk, not deciding who matters more in a moment that hasn't even happened yet, because I still do it. That doesn't go away. You don't spend weeks deciding outcomes and then just stop thinking that way. I still notice things too quickly, too clearly. The distance between people, the way someone stands when they're about to do something, the kind of stillness that doesn't belong. The only difference now is that I don't have the phone, I don't have the grid, and I don't get to choose. That's what I took for myself. That's what it cost. And I've decided that's the right version of me to be. Not better, not safer, just not that. I chose to stop being the variable. That's all I can tell you. The city is still out there. It's still moving, still balancing itself, still deciding things in ways I don't understand. It doesn't need me to watch it. And sometimes, late enough, when everything goes quiet, I catch myself looking up at the corners of buildings. Not at the sky, at the edges, where the cameras would be. And for a second, just a second, I wonder what got chosen after I left.